The signal arrived on a Tuesday morning, pulsing through the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Nevada. At first, the technicians thought it was a glitch, some random cosmic interference, or a satellite malfunction. But as the pattern repeated, growing stronger with each cycle, their excitement mounted. Frank Mason was enjoying his morning coffee when his secure phone buzzed. The gruff 42-year-old captain had been expecting a quiet day reviewing training protocols for his crew. Instead, the words on his screen made his heart race. First contact protocol initiated. Report immediately. 3 hours later, he stood in a windowless room beneath the Pentagon, surrounded by the highest military and scientific authorities on Earth. The tension was palpable as Dr. Olivia Carter, the lead xenolinguist, explained what they had discovered. "It's definitely artificial, and definitely not human," she said, pushing a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. The message repeats in 3 distinct mathematical patterns that couldn't occur naturally. We've managed to decode portions of it using the mathematical constants embedded in the signal. The room fell silent as she played the translation through the speakers. The voice sounded almost like singing, beautiful but filled with unmistakable distress. "Help us. The Kryvacs come. They take our children. We cannot fight. Help us. We are the Meliorans of the third spiral. Help us." General Harris cleared his throat. "And we're sure this isn't some elaborate hoax. The signal originates from a star system 37 light-years away," Dr. Carter replied. "No human technology could have placed it there." The debate that followed lasted for days. Some argued for caution. Humanity sending its first interstellar mission to respond to an alien war they knew nothing about seemed foolish. Others insisted that answering a cry for help was the moral choice, regardless of the source. In the end, President Alvarez made the decision. "If we hope to join a galactic community someday, we must show we can be counted on. We will send help." Within weeks, the UNS Harbinger and 3 support vessels were prepared for humanity's first interstellar mission. The ships had been designed for eventual deep space exploration, but no one had expected to use them so soon. Captain Mason walked through the Harbinger's corridors, nodding to crew members as they made final preparations. The ship hummed with activity, soldiers training, scientists checking equipment, engineers running diagnostics on the experimental hyperspace drive. "How are you handling all this, Captain?" asked his executive officer, Linda Powell, falling into step beside him. Mason shrugged. "About as well as anyone could. We're making first contact and potentially entering a war, all in one mission." "The crew's calling it Operation Good Neighbor," Powell said with a slight smile. Mason snorted. "Let's hope these neighbors appreciate the help." That night, as the 4 ships prepared to depart from Earth orbit, Mason recorded his personal log. "We're heading into the unknown on behalf of beings we've never met, against enemies we don't understand. Some would call this madness. Maybe it is. But when I heard that message, that plea for help, I knew we had to respond. Humanity has spent centuries fighting among ourselves. Perhaps helping others is what we needed all along." The next morning, with Earth growing smaller on their view screens, the hyperspace drives engage. In a flash of light that momentarily outshone the sun, humanity's first interstellar mission vanished into the depths of space, carrying Earth's most dangerous and compassionate creation, humans, to answer an alien cry for help. The UNS Harbinger emerged from hyperspace in a cascade of blue light. After 3 months of travel, the 4-ship Earth fleet had arrived at their destination, a beautiful blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. "Meliora," Dr. Carter whispered, leaning forward to better see the planet on the bridge's main view screen. "It looks so much like Earth." Captain Mason nodded, though he noted the differences immediately. The planet had less landmass than Earth, with scattered archipelagos rather than large continents. The oceans were deeper, the color richer. "We're picking up signals from the surface," Communications Officer Ryan Garcia reported. "And there's a space station in orbit. They're hailing us." The bridge crew fell silent as the view screen flickered, revealing their first view of a Melioran. The alien had large, almond-shaped eyes that dominated a delicate face. Its skin was pale lavender, and fine, silvery hair floated around its head as if underwater. "Earth vessels," the alien spoke, its voice melodic despite the obvious translator technology. "I am Guardian Zephyr of the Melioran Council. Your journey across the stars to answer our call fills us with gratitude." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Guardian Zephyr, I am Dr. Olivia Carter of Earth. We come in peace and in the spirit of assistance." The formal exchange continued before arrangements were made for a delegation to shuttle down to the planet's surface. Captain Mason selected a small team, himself, Dr. Carter, Security Chief Alex Winters, and 2 Marines, to represent Earth in this historic meeting. As their shuttle descended through Meliora's atmosphere, Mason marveled at the cities below. Unlike Earth's angular skylines, Melioran architecture resembled coral growths, with buildings flowing into one another in organic patterns. "Their gravity is only about 40% of Earth's," Dr. Carter noted as the shuttle landed. "Be careful with your movements. We'll seem incredibly strong to them." The moment they stepped onto Melioran soil, Mason felt the difference. Each step threatened to launch him skyward if he didn't consciously control his movements. The air was thinner too, though still breathable. A delegation of Meliorans waited for them. Up close, the aliens were even more striking, tall and willowy, with movements that seemed to float rather than walk. The entire greeting party wore flowing garments in pastel colors that shifted with the light. "Welcome to Meliora," Guardian Zephyr said, extending both hands with palms up in what they would learn was a traditional greeting. When Dr. Carter attempted to replicate the gesture, a visible wave of shock passed through the Melioran delegation. "Your muscle density," one of them exclaimed. "How can you move with such mass?" Dr. Carter explained about Earth's higher gravity, denser atmosphere, and more extreme climate variations. With each detail shared, the Meliorans' expressions grew more astonished. "You evolved on a death world," Guardian Zephyr finally said, using a term their translators struggled with. "We had no idea. Your physical capabilities must be extraordinary." The humans were led to a Grand Council chamber where the Melioran leaders explained their situation in detail. The Kryvax, insect-like beings from a nearby star system, had arrived 6 cycles ago. At first, they seemed interested in trade, but soon began abducting Meliorans. "We are empaths by nature," explained Eldervorn, an older Melioran with silver-blue skin. "Violence causes us physical pain. We cannot fight back effectively. Our defenses were designed to deter natural predators, not spacefaring raiders." Mason listened carefully, asking questions about Kryvax numbers and technology. When he inquired about their next expected attack, the answer chilled him. "They follow a harvesting cycle," Guardian Zephyr replied. "They will return in 7 days by your count." As the meeting concluded, Mason caught Dr. Carter's eye. They both understood. Earth had arrived just in time, but they had less than a week to prepare for battle against an enemy they'd never seen, on a world they barely understood, alongside allies who couldn't fight. "We'll need to begin preparations immediately," Mason said, his voice steady despite the daunting task ahead. "And we'll need to learn everything we can about these Kryvax." Lieutenant William Reyes crouched behind a ridge of purple-hued stone, his adaptive camouflage uniform blending with the alien landscape. Through high-powered binoculars, he observed the Kryvax outpost in the valley below. After 3 days on Meliora, the human forces had located several Kryvax forward bases. "Count at least 30 of them moving around the perimeter," Reyes whispered to Specialist Kelly Grant, who was documenting everything with a tactical recorder. "They're bigger than I expected." The Kryvax stood nearly 7 feet tall on their hind legs, with segmented exoskeletons that gleamed darkly in the sunlight. Their 4 arms ended in what appeared to be natural weapons, 2 with pincer-like claws, 2 with finger-like appendages for manipulation. But what disturbed Rise most was what he saw inside their compound. "They got Meliorans in those containers," he said grimly. "At least 24. Looks like they're sorting them by size." Grant adjusted the recorder's focus. "Are they taking them as slaves?" Rise shook his head. "I don't think so. Look at that processing station. Those aren't slave quarters." The realization hit them both simultaneously. The containers, the sorting, the processing equipment. It was a harvesting operation. The Kryvacs weren't taking slaves. They were treating Meliorans as resources, possibly as food. "We need to report this immediately," Ray said, backing away from the ridge. "Captain Mason needs tow." A sharp clicking sound froze them both. Slowly, Rais turned to find 3 Kryvacs warriors standing less than 20 feet away, mandibles clicking in what could only be their form of communication. Their compound eyes reflected the scout team in fractured images. "Don't move," Rais breathed to Grant. Then, louder, "This is Lieutenant William Rais of Earth. We come in peace." The Kryvac's response was immediate and unmistakable. The center one raised its upper right arm, revealing a weapon. Rais dove sideways as energy scorched the ground where he'd been standing. "So much for diplomacy," Grant muttered, raising her rifle. The firefight was brief but intense. The Kryvac's weapons fired some kind of plasma bolt that melted rock on impact. But what the aliens had in firepower, they lacked in tactical sense. They attacked in a straight line, making no attempt to flank or take cover. Rais and Grant managed to eliminate the threat, but the noise had alerted the outpost. More Kryvacs were emerging, moving with surprising speed. "Fall back to extraction point," Rais ordered through his comm unit to the rest of his hidden team. "We've been compromised." As they fled through the alien forest, Rais noted how the Kryvacs pursued, relentlessly, but with little strategy. They simply charged forward, seemingly unconcerned about casualties or tactics. It was as if they couldn't conceive of being outmatched physically. Back at the Melioran city serving as the human base of operations, Captain Mason listened intently to Reyes's report. "So they're harvesting Meliorans," Mason said, his face grim. "And they show no interest in communication." "They shot as soon as they saw us, sir," Rice confirmed. "But there's good news too. Their tactics are primitive, just direct assault. They have superior numbers and decent tech, but no concept of strategic warfare." Dr. Carter, who had been consulting with Melioran elders, joined the conversation. "The Meliorans say the Kryvacs operate with a hive mentality. Individual warriors don't make decisions. They follow collective orders from their queens." Mason nodded thoughtfully. "That explains their tactics. They're used to overwhelming enemies with numbers, not skill." He turned to Major Susan Garcia, his ground forces commander. "What do you think?" Garcia had been reviewing the tactical footage. "Their exoskeletons are tough, but our weapons can penetrate. What interests me is their reaction time. It's slow compared to humans. In Earth's gravity, we'd have a significant advantage in speed and strength. Even here, we're faster," Rise added. "When we engaged, they couldn't track our movements effectively." Captain Mason stood, decision made. "Then we have our strategy. We'll avoid direct confrontation where their numbers matter. Instead, we'll use our physical advantages, speed, agility, and tactical thinking. They may be powerful, but they've never faced Deathworlders before." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the captain's words. They weren't just fighting to save the Meliorans anymore. They were showing the galaxy what humans could do. Major Susan Garcia watched with a mixture of frustration and amusement as another Melioran volunteer collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by the weight of a standard-issue Earth rifle. "You need to brace it against your shoulder," she explained patiently, helping the slender alien back to his feet. "Use your body to absorb the recoil." The Melioran, Lyran was his name, trembled slightly. "It is so heavy. How do you carry these all day?" "To us, it's not heavy at all," Garcia said, effortlessly lifting the weapon with one hand to demonstrate. "Our world has much stronger gravity than yours. We grew up with it. Around the training field, similar scenes played out as human soldiers attempted to teach basic combat skills to Melioran volunteers. Despite their natural aversion to violence, several hundred had stepped forward to defend their world alongside the humans. Captain Mason walked through the makeshift training ground, observing the progress. The disparities between humans and Meliorans were striking. Where humans moved with purpose and strength, Meliorans seemed to float, their movements graceful but lacking power. "How's it going, Major?" Mason asked as he approached Garcia. She shook her head. "They're trying, sir, but physically they're just not built for combat. Their bones are practically hollow compared to ours, and their muscles have about a third of our density." "We don't need them to fight like humans," Mason reminded her. "We just need them to support our operations, spotting, communication, medical assistance. Their knowledge of the terrain will be invaluable." As they spoke, Dr. Carter approached with Guardian Zephyr. The Melioran leader had been watching the training with obvious distress, wincing whenever a weapon discharged. "Captain," Dr. Carter said, "Guardian Zephyr has information about Krivak's movements." The Melioran stepped forward, elegant despite his obvious discomfort. "Our long-range sensors have detected a large Krivak's vessel entering our system. It appears to be their main high ship, much larger than their usual raiding vessels." Mason frowned. "How long until it arrives?" "2 of your Earth days," Zephyr replied. "We believe this is in response to your presence. They have never sent their high ship before." "They're escalating," Mason said. "Good. That means they see us as a threat." Zephyr looked shocked. "Good. They are bringing their most powerful vessel. Better to face them here and now than let them retreat and return with an even larger force," Mason explained. "We've been preparing defensive positions around your main city, but we'll need to accelerate our plans." Later that evening, Mason called a meeting with his senior officers in the U.S. Harbinger's command center. Tactical displays showed Meliora's surface, with human defensive positions marked in blue and known Krivak's outposts in red. "The Krivaks are used to harvesting helpless species," Mason said, addressing the room. "They've never encountered resistance like what we can offer. Commander Wong, what's our orbital situation?" Patricia Wong, the fleet's tactical officer, highlighted several points in Meliora's orbit. "We've positioned our ships to provide maximum coverage. The Harbinger will remain in high orbit to coordinate, while our support vessels will move to these lower positions for direct fire support." "What about our ground forces?" Mason asked, turning to Garcia. "We've established 3 defensive rings around the city," she replied. "Outer ring has mobile strike teams ready to hit their flanks. Middle ring has our heavy weapons and Melioran support teams. Inner ring is our last line, with the majority of our forces." Lieutenant Reyes, who had been analyzing Krivak's movements, spoke up. "Based on their previous attacks, they'll come in waves. Cannon fodder first, then their elite warriors, then heavy units. They don't adapt well to changing battlefield conditions." Dr. Carter had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now she stepped forward. "There's something else you should know. The Meliorans have shown me their historical records. The Krivaks have destroyed at least 4 other peaceful species in this sector of space. We're not just defending Meliora, we're potentially stopping a pattern of extinction." Mason nodded gravely. "Then we make our stand here. Not just for the Meliorans, but for every species these predators might target next." He looked around the room at the determined faces of his crew. "In 2 days, we show the Krivaks what happens when you hunt prey, but find predators instead." Dawn broke over Meliora's main continent with an eerie calm. The sky, normally a soft lavender, had turned a deep purple as storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Sergeant Daniel Jackson checked his weapon for the 5th time as he crouched in his forward position on the eastern ridge overlooking the valley. His squad of 12 Marines was spread out along the natural rock formation, hidden among the strange fern-like vegetation. Movement at the tree line. Private Samantha Ortiz whispered through the comm. "Lots of movement." Jackson raised his binoculars. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds, no, thousands, of Kryvax warriors were emerging from the forest. They moved in eerie unison, like a single organism with countless parts. "Harbinger, this is Echo Squad," Jackson reported. "We have visual on the main Kryvax force. Estimate 2,000 plus, approaching from the east." Captain Mason's voice crackled in his ear. "Confirmed, Sergeant. Hold position until they reach the marked zone. Then implement Operation Hornet's Nest." The Kryvax advanced steadily across the open ground, their chitinous bodies gleaming in the strange light. Unlike human armies, they made no attempt at cover or concealment. They simply moved forward in a massive wave, apparently confident in their overwhelming numbers. "They have no idea what they're walking into," Ortiz muttered. Jackson nodded grimly. "That's the idea." When the Kryvax force reached the middle of the valley, a carefully chosen killing field, Jackson gave the signal. His squad activated the hidden sonic disruptors that Earth engineers had planted throughout the valley floor. The devices, calibrated to the specific frequency that disturbed Kryvax communication, activated simultaneously. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The organized Kryvax formation dissolved into chaos. Individual warriors stopped, their mandibles clicking frantically as they tried to reestablish contact with their hive mind. Some collided with each other, others wandered in random directions. "Now," Jackson ordered. His squad opened fire from their elevated positions. Each shot found its mark, the vulnerable join between carapace segments that Lieutenant Reyes's reconnaissance had identified. All along the ridge, other human squads did the same, their weapons cutting through the confused Kryvax ranks. From orbit, the UNS Harbinger's smaller support vessels launched precision strikes on the larger Kryvax war machines that were approaching from the rear. Commander Wong had timed the orbital bombardment perfectly, creating a barrier of fire that separated the main Kryvax force from their reinforcements. The Kryvax, recovering from their initial confusion, attempted to organize a counterattack. A group of larger warriors, distinguished by red markings on their exoskeletons, began directing others toward the human positions. "They've adapted faster than expected," Jackson reported. Moving to Phase 2. On his command, the human forces withdrew from the ridge, appearing to retreat in disorder. The Kryvax, sensing victory, surged forward in pursuit, exactly as planned. As the aliens reached the ridge, Major Garcia's forces emerged from hidden bunkers behind them. Caught between two human forces, the Kryvax fought ferociously, but without coordination. Individual warriors were formidable, but they faced humans who had evolved on a world that demanded constant adaptation and tactical thinking. Jackson found himself in hand-to-hand combat with a Kryvax commander. The alien was nearly twice his size, with natural weapons that could tear through metal. But in Meliora's lower gravity, Jackson moved with a speed and agility that made him almost impossible to hit. He dodged a vicious swipe from the Kryvax's pincers, rolled under its guard, and fired 3 shots into the vulnerable neck joint. From the city, Melioran observers watched in horror and awe. The violence physically pained their empathic senses, but they couldn't look away. They had never witnessed such controlled ferocity, such coordinated destruction. The humans moved like predators among the Kryvax, seeming to anticipate attacks before they came. By midday, the battlefield fell silent. The Kryvax had broken, retreating in disarray toward their landing ships. Those left behind were quickly eliminated by human cleanup teams. In the command center, Captain Mason received Jackson's report with grim satisfaction. "We've blooded them," Mason said to Dr. Carter. "But the real battle is still to come." Captain Frank Mason stood on the bridge of the assault shuttle, watching through the viewport as the massive Kryvax high ship grew larger. The vessel was unlike anything humans had ever built, organic-looking, with twisted spires and bulbous sections that defied conventional engineering principles. 2 minutes to contact point, the pilot announced, her voice tight with concentration as she navigated through the debris field surrounding the alien mothership. Mason turned to his strike team. 20 of Earth's best soldiers, each equipped with the heaviest armor and weapons they could carry in Meliora's lighter gravity. Commander Patricia Wong, coordinating from the Harbinger, had identified a potential entry point, a maintenance dock that appeared less heavily defended. "Remember, our primary objective is their command center," Mason told his team. "We need to disrupt their leadership structure. Secondary objective is to gather intelligence on other species they've targeted. Lieutenant Reyes believes they keep records of their hunting grounds." The shuttle shuddered as the Kryvax defenses detected their approach. Energy beams sliced through space around them, but the human pilot was ready, throwing the craft into evasive maneuvers that would have crushed everyone aboard in Earth's gravity. 30 seconds, she called. Mason activated his helmet's sealed environment system. "Masks on. We don't know what's in their atmosphere." The shuttle crashed through the outer barrier of the maintenance dock, skidding across the alien deck in a shower of sparks before coming to rest against a far wall. The hatch blew outward, and Mason led his team into the high ship. The interior was nightmare fuel, organic walls that pulsed with an unnerving rhythm, floors that seemed to absorb their footsteps, and an omnipresent chittering sound that echoed through unseen passages. "Atmosphere contains high levels of methane and ammonia," reported Corporal Nina Alvarez, checking her sensors. "Toxic to humans but breathable for insectoid life." They encountered resistance almost immediately. Kryvax warriors poured from side passages, their mandibles clicking frantically. But in the confined spaces of the ship, the aliens couldn't use their numbers effectively. The human team formed a tight defensive circle, their weapons cutting down the attackers in controlled bursts. "They're not coordinating their attacks," Mason observed as they pushed deeper into the ship. "It's like they don't know how to handle invaders aboard their own vessel." From orbit, Commander Wong directed the battle with surgical precision. The Harbinger and its support vessels engaged the Kryvax defense platforms, creating a protective umbrella around Mason's insertion point. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy readings from the central section of the high ship," Wong reported through the comm. "They may be preparing to jump to hyperspace." "Not happening," Mason replied grimly. "We're heading for their engine section now." The team fought their way through increasingly desperate resistance. The Kryvax were clearly panicking, something they had never encountered from any species they had hunted before. In a vast chamber that appeared to be some kind of trophy room, Mason stopped short. Displayed in transparent containers were preserved specimens of at least a dozen different alien species, some humanoid, others utterly foreign in design. All appeared to be peaceful, non-warrior races like the Meliorans. "They're collectors," Sergeant Jackson said in disgust. They'd been harvesting sentient species across this entire sector. Mason ordered the data systems downloaded before they moved on. What they found would later shock and galvanize Earth's leadership. Detailed maps of dozens of inhabited worlds, all marked as future harvest grounds. Meanwhile, back on Meliora, Dr. Carter and Guardian Zephyr had made a breakthrough. Working with Melioran scientists, they had developed a compound that disrupted the Kryvax pheromone communication at its source. "It won't kill them," Dr. Carter explained over the comm to Mason, "but it will effectively blind their hive mind. Each Kryvax will be isolated, unable to receive commands. Get it to Commander Wong," Mason ordered as his team fought their way toward what they believed was the command nexus. "We'll deploy it here if we can reach their ventilation systems." The battle reached its climax in a massive central chamber. Here, Mason's team encountered the Kryvax queens, enormous versions of the warriors, surrounded by guard drones. As the humans breached the chamber, the aliens froze momentarily, seemingly unable to comprehend the audacity of prey creatures attacking the very heart of their hive. That moment of hesitation was all Mason needed. His team deployed Dr. Carter's compound into the ventilation system while setting explosive charges on the ship's hyperspace engines. As alarms blared and a Kryvax leadership descended into confused panic, Mason gave the order his team had been waiting for. Mission accomplished. Fall back to extraction point. The human counteroffensive had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. For the first time in their predatory history, the Kryvacs had met a species they couldn't simply harvest. They had encountered the ultimate predators from a world far harsher than their own. 1 month after the battle, Meliora's landscape showed few signs of the conflict that had nearly annihilated its people. The planet's remarkable ecosystem had already begun healing the scars of war, with vibrant plant life reclaiming battlefields and destroyed Kryvacs outposts. Captain Frank Mason stood beside Dr. Olivia Carter on a balcony overlooking the central plaza of the Melioran capital. Below them, humans and Meliorans mingled, their interactions still cautious but increasingly comfortable. Earth engineers were helping install defensive systems, while Melioran scientists shared their advanced knowledge of biotechnology. The Kryvacs fleet left the sector entirely, Mason said, reviewing the latest report from the long-range scouts. According to intercepted communications, they're spreading warnings about humans to other predatory species. Carter nodded. The Meliorans have been contacted by 3 other peaceful civilizations in nearby systems since the battle. Word is spreading quickly that Earth has become something of a protector. Protector, Mason repeated, testing the word. Not exactly what we expected when we answered that distress call. Guardian Zephyr approached, moving with the floating grace characteristic of his species. The Melioran leader had become a close ally during the conflict, though Mason noticed he still maintained a careful distance from humans, a physical manifestation of the complex feelings his people harbored toward their saviors. The Council has approved the treaty, Zephyr announced. Earth will establish a permanent protective outpost in our system, and we will share our scientific and cultural knowledge. That's excellent news, Carter replied with a warm smile. Zephyr's expression was more difficult to read. Many of my people remain unsettled by what we witnessed. Your capacity for violence is unlike anything we have encountered. Mason frowned. We used that capacity to save your civilization. Yes, Zephyr acknowledged. And that is the paradox that fascinates us. You possess the most terrifying potential for destruction, yet you choose to protect rather than conquer. You could easily have claimed our world as your own. That's not who we are, Carter said gently. A group of children, both human and Melioran, ran through the plaza below, playing some improvised game that transcended their biological differences. The Melioran children moved with ethereal grace, while the human children bounded energetically in the lighter gravity, yet they had found a way to play together. Perhaps that is the most valuable lesson, Zephyr observed. That strength need not only destroy, it can also defend. Later that evening, Mason attended a formal ceremony where Earth and Meliora officially established diplomatic relations. Representatives from 3 other non-human civilizations were present, species that had been hiding from the Kryvacs for generations. A small reptilian ambassador approached Mason after the ceremony. My people have watched from afar as you defeated those who have hunted us for centuries, she said in a musical voice. We would discuss a similar protective arrangement. As Mason began diplomatic conversations, Dr. Carter found herself surrounded by alien scientists eager to learn about Earth and humans. Their questions revealed both curiosity and concern. Is it true you evolved on a planet with constant natural disasters? Asked one 4-armed researcher. And predators that hunt for sport rather than just sustenance? Inquired another. Carter explained Earth's challenging environment, its earthquakes and hurricanes, its diverse predators and diseases, its extreme temperature variations, all factors that had forged humanity's resilience. With each detail, the alien scientists exchanged meaningful glances. You call it a death world, Carter concluded. We call it home. As Earth ships prepared to return with news of their success, a permanent garrison of volunteers remained behind. The UNS Harbinger would stay in orbit as the cornerstone of the new protective fleet. In his final log entry before the journey home, Captain Mason reflected on what they had accomplished. We came to Meliora expecting to fight a war for strangers. Instead, we've started building a community among the stars. The galaxy is learning what humanity truly is. Not just warriors, not just protectors, but both simultaneously. Perhaps the duality is our greatest strength. We understand the darkness because we carry some of it within us, and that's precisely why we choose the light. As Earth's presence expanded through the region formerly terrorized by the Kryvax, a new term spread among the peaceful species of the sector. When danger threatened, when predators appeared, they no longer cried out in helpless desperation. Instead, they sent a simple message that carried both warning and hope. Call the Deathworlders.